Oh, I'm ready for this break though. Another couple days.
Okay. Call to order the November 22nd regular Board of Education meeting at 6:38. Apologize for the delay. Please stand for the pledge. To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. That's perfect. She's got a code on. I'm ready to take mine off. Okay. It's roll call, starting with Vic, please. Nicole Viva Kraft, Stephanie Miller, Debbie Sherman,
Michael Kusa.
Vinny Canadello.
and Shelley Lacey Castellat via Zoom. So Joe's. Okay. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll go to minutes.
Board of Education, regular meeting minutes.
Say that again. Any changes or issues with that? Okay, all those in favor? Abstain?
Abstain.
We're here? Okay, so just Steve abstain, motion carries. Audience of citizens, is there anyone who would like to talk to the board? Hi. Is that mic working? Wait, what did you say?
You're not getting her in the room. Like,
Triplets in 8th grade. Last year, my daughter was in the Oxford School Musical. She was a Wicked Witch. And I'm here just to report back. You know, the board. We're not quite sure how the stipend is coming out last year, but the kids are very eager and ready to go. They are very devastated that the program was not supported. Obviously, these are our feeder students that are heading into the high school. Wonderful performances that they put on there. And not time to prepare for a musical like this. Obviously, it's difficult to find somebody who will basically work for less than minimum wage for the amount of time to prepare for something like this. So I'm here to support that. I hope that the board will consider putting that money back into the budget.
Thank you, and you know, just to be clear, that money out, that is something those are stipends that are negotiated between the union and administrators, and so it's on our agenda. Aware of it. Thank you for telling us again, but I think that you're going to be happy with it. And you know, we support it, and I don't think it was ever not support, just so that you understand, please, that it was ever not supported. So, you know, whatever happened, I'm really not sure either, but, you know,
Yeah, I don't think anybody's quite sure. But
well,
either way,
you know,
exactly.
but thank you for bringing it to our attention. Hello.
Good evening. Dave Kimball, 178 Markup Road. So I'm here tonight to discuss, it was brought to my attention from my daughter for Oxford Middle School hospitals, is that the higher assessments or remediation, if you will, were being used as homework grades, supposedly as directed from the superintendent. So I just wanted to kind of address the information that was given to me. So for those of you unfamiliar with iReady, it is a diagnostic tool for educators in addition to some remediation and possibly some slight enrichment. It's an adaptive platform which allows students to work on gaps within their learning. So the assessments that would be coming out of that would be ones in which kids are still learning skills. And you kind of land on this kind of 0 to 1 for homework. It does two things. It kind of gives an artificial grade. If you were to think about it, if that goes into a student's overall grade, I don't know about you, but as a parent, when I look at a grade or 100, my assumption is that my child has acquired, I don't know, 80%, 100%. That's what I'm reading. But when you're pulling this from mediation software or something along those lines, and you're either giving a student a result. Plus, if you have students that are going through a process where they're actually learning skills, of course, we're assessing it, but as an educator, evaluating what that score is, drilling down deeper into the software to find out where the teacher would then step in to help support that student. So it seems like there's either a lapse in judgment or a misunderstanding, one or the other. Regardless, that it shouldn't be the case. I mean, it shouldn't be a part of a kid's cumulative record that we're kind of looking at in order to figure out where that child is on the spectrum of the
Did you contact the principal with this?
Of course.
question? And you were told. Oh, might as well do it now in case they're not here.
There is a miscommunication over that some teachers were counting the students as part of the homework grade. Participation. And they whether it be iReady or any other type of students ask, that's about it. Overall grade, but the student actual performance or mastery on the iReady, that wasn't supposed to be part of any graded part of the student's academic success. There was this miscommunication there around that.
I'm glad to hear that there was. Nonetheless, even that 5 to 10% is still creates an inaccurate. And not to jump too far ahead, but to have a compliance grade for homework. When we fall into compliance as far as grading, as opposed to assessing when they are within the standards, we go down a really slippery slope as well, as I'm sure you know. So just so that we as a district, I would hope we'd be beyond that.
Right, and to speak to your the point about data, teachers would have in areas that students are struggling, so they could then have differentiated groups with those students. Direct instruction around specific skills, they can pull those students aside and now work with those students that need. That's the whole point of using those differentiated groups, so that students can get a targeted instruction around the skills that they need through the program itself.
Thank you.
So then I guess that's another discussion about and it's been for eons. How much do you count homework? But that's it for another day. Okay.
And if you look at the best 15 years of research, there is no effect size on homework, at least all the way up until high school. And even that, it's only if it's targeted. So if we did our homework, 10 years. That's fine.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you so much. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. We have none. Let's see. I meant to talk to her about this one. We'll just wait. So our next is board officers discussion and possible action. So as we know that Shelley Lacey Castellat stepped down as vice chair. So we have that opening. So I would like to open a nomination for a vice chair. And then we will. Dick, you nominate Mike? I want to, once we have a nomination, then do we?
Nomination.
Yeah,
You would then second.
but what if we have a second nomination? Do I ask for other nominations now? Or do I do one? So, okay. Second for that. No, I know. So hearing no, second, taken away.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Debbie Sherman for vice chair.
I second that. Any discussion? All those in favor
Aye.
or abstain, motion carries. Congratulations, Deb. Thank you. Which now I also am accepting Deb's resignation as secretary. Yeah, so. Nomination for secretary.
Sure, I'd like to nominate Mike Cooper.
Second.
That was well done. I know we needed 2/3 and we have that, so I think it's all good. I wanted to double check that before I started the meeting, but we got stuck in that.
We do still need to do check signers. We need to do a motion to remove for the,
So
Yep. has to be in the-
so I make a motion to remove Shelley Lacy Castelot from as a signer on the bank account. And
Nicole, any discussion on that? All those in favor? Carries. So Mike will be available every other Thursday to sign checks.
you'll love it. It'll be smooth.
A little busy.
So it's Wednesday.
I just want to say thank you to both of you
Yes.
for stepping.
Okay, so that was.
Part of the work that Urban Building Committee asked the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen to fund was a outside consulting for the CSD. Drawing up the educational specifications. That's what you see in front of you tonight. That's the grant itself for next week. So CSG, which is the consulting firm, middle school, they're the ones that do.
Motion to approve the ed specs as presented at the
Want me to do the motion and then we can do discussion?
Education, educational. Elementary HVAC, indoor air quality improvement.
Second.
Mike, discussion.
had partially submitted the grant in there, it requires special meeting that's going to take place Monday evening, the 28th. It also dollar. On these items,
Clearest,
But
clearest.
where
Claire still sends it to me.
I'll send it to Deb
And I'll
every
fix
night, and then, yeah, let me know if there's a change.
Okay, perfect.
These two girls, forget about it.
Yeah.
Services.
Now that business manager on record.
Can't be Mike.
Could, or we could do a motion that does go to, we have one person that.
I'm just saying that, you know, Mark is part of a group and it might not be solely dedicated to our school, whereas Mike is now an employee. So Mike is,
Is there a problem doing both?
I think if you do the motions for do both, I can find out if both will be on it, and if it only needs to go.
I mean, is there a benefit that I'm not getting?
The only reason why I might be cautious.
Both.
Michael D'Agostino.
Yes,
Dougson and Mark is,
and that allows us to express it whichever we need to do.
So it's to sign the food service.
child nutrition program.
So a motion to approve Mark Izzo and or Michael D'Agostino to sign the child nutrition.
Organization to authorize to sign. All those in favor? Or abstain? Motion carries. And with the contingency, Rob, obviously, if you find out there's something with that, we'll do it.
The second one is the actual food cost itself. So for the entire pandemic, the federal. Out of the course of this full academic year, other states didn't have enough revenue to make it happen the full year. So our state gave to every district a set of make it free. Our money is going to expire based upon means when parents returned from break in January for the first time since March 2020. Or now, students have had to, if they're purchasing extra chips or extra things, they do need to purchase more now, but the base lunch is free. So we need to provide parents by state law, federal law, 30 days notice that we will begin to charge them lunch again. You are aware, A, that we're going to begin charging because our fund is going to be expiring on December 23rd, so that we would then notify the parents either tomorrow or Monday that it's to be charged as of January 3rd. The second component of that is that of life, including done an increase in our food costs since 2017-18. It's been several years since the 17-18 is the last year that food increases took place. It's been static for a while now. Now, we didn't need to address it during the pandemic because it was all free, because of rising present costs and the increase in minimum. We'd like to see an increase in the cost by 50 cents per meal across the board. To do that, we can keep it stable. Have difficulties in some cases keeping I don't like starting with meals in January and then returning in March or June. Start charging prices down in January. Then we out of the gate say this is what the new costs are going to be. Which is why I'm bringing it forward now.
You know, the document that you gave us, the, how the whole thing works. There is some federal and state reimbursement.
Program, federal government per meal, 15 cents. You get reset reimbursement.
So that hasn't changed.
That has-
People can still.
We still do. Parents are eligible for free reduced lunch, even though we have meals, we still have that parents inside of the program. December. The recommendation would be is that elementary would be $2.29, middle school would be $2.50, high school would be $4 per lunch.
And we're still are we using that same system of, I forget what it's called.
High school bucks.
Have they figured out, you know, here's the thing. I don't know if we can figure out, but, you know, in elementary, right, high school, middle school, even, but if an elementary school child, you know, doesn't have enough school bucks, you know, I just don't want anyone
Right.
to have,
That's going to be one of our policies.
it's not their fault, it's their
No.
parents.
That is one of the policies that we talked about our last policy committee. I'll be discussing at our next policy committee in December. There's no shaming that's allowed across the state.
Right, and I also don't want, well, here, you have crackers. and it
No,
was-
there's an actual meal that students would get. It will.
Okay. And, nothing to do with them. So,
Is this something that we could not change the rate for the rest of the school year and then revisit it come August for when we start school?
Typically, we revisit the school year, which would set the rates of the following school year. We're bringing to you now because it's the first time to do.
I just feel like families are struggling.
I meant like the increase is 50 cents. And you go, how many meals is that times 50 cents? Like, I'm just curious per child. What, is this, are we looking at 10,000, 20,000? It adds up when you have that number of students that many days.
Maximum, you're looking at 180 times 50 cents. That's the extra that if you buy them.
Just work with Whitson's, because Whitson's is contracted with the school.
Yes.
Goes to Whitson's, and Whitson's needs to pay their employers the food, so it's all on Whitson's to cover.
If they were in a deficit year, we actually had to contribute and pay up to $13,000 to $15,000.
And that has happened, or?
That's happened historically. I think we had to pay them for the year.
Okay. I don't know, I guess it could be further discussion. I see Deb's point, but I also, just knowing that, Whitson's has to, has to survive. I don't want them to
I don't know the quality of change.
quality
Kids
or
are
the
getting.
people or the, if they have to be able to have staff as many.
And they struggle from a staffing perspective. As you can imagine, a lot of these staff members are working in the rate right now.
Right.
And if they can make a dollar or two somewhere else, they're losing staff because they're not able to pay them what some other people are paying them. They're just like we're having staffing difficulties with our staff. They're having.
Is it possible to get, the combination between, minimum wage increases for salary and the cost per meal, per student factored in for the students, because there's a lot of variables in play. Are we looking, it'd be nice to know if we're looking at 5 or 10,000 or if it's, 80,000. And so to have a fuller picture, I think that makes it easier to take action.
Do we know the contract before
We have a contract.
what the cost is, even though we're being reimbursed?
I don't have that information in front of me here, but we do have a contract that I'll fill out.
Can
So
we-
where are we in time?
That plus 10%.
We just
Time
signed-
frame.
We just signed it.
No, I meant as far as making a decision, because you said we have to give parents 30 days.
We need to get a notification that we'll begin charging them, and I think that if we're going to begin charging, I think we need to let them know what the cost is.
Right. So, but it sounds like you'd like some more information before we make that decision.
It would be nice to know, because it'd be, how are we gonna pay for it? So if we decide to absorb the cost, we have to know what the cost is gonna be and how we're going to factor in the payment. If it's a small number, it's a lot easier to swallow and kind of
We are
absorb.
not necessarily going to absorb the cost as a school district. We'll absorb it if they end up in a deficit per se. But what we will probably see is I will try and cut some costs by purchasing less quality food or having less options for students.
The goal is not to have an impact on the students in a negative way. The goal is just to know what is the cost to move forward with, let's say, increasing the price or not increasing the price, but having the board of, the district pay the difference. So there's not a deficit, so there's not a lower quality of food, because my kids eat the food. We don't want the quality of the food to go down at all. So
I don't think that you're necessarily going to see a cost impact to the district. The impact will be probably on quality and their ability to maintain staff.
but if I want to avoid the quality of food, there's a cost, right? And one is 50 cents potentially per family, per meal, per kid. So if that turns into $1 amounts, so you say 108 days, 50 cents, it's $54. Okay, well, how many kids would that qualify for versus the free and reduced and the different, because there's different variables in play. So are we talking, how many students in each bucket? What is the true cost for that? So if we were to do it, if we didn't want to put it on the parents, we didn't want the quality to go down, and we wanted to, let's say, cut a check and say, well, we'll pay the difference and hold it for the year and kind of push this off to next school year. It'd be nice to know what that cost
Ask
was.
them to quantify, but our contract's not designed to work in that way, though.
They won't, you won't know until the just
But
They don't know how many kids.
but we can't figure out how many kids are on each bucket and then do the math.
Because not every student purchases lunch
Right.
every day.
But you can get a,
Just say
And-
estimate.
and
you
our-
can get a ballpark. It doesn't have to be an exact number, but it, there's a difference between $10,000 and 100,000.
Whether it's $15,000 or $250,000, our board here is not going to pay a single dime of that. Our contract is not designed for us to pay that fee to the.
But you said that we had.
The
Our
deficit.
new contract, I know that.
Okay, that wasn't clear. Okay.
Our new contract, I don't have the data in front of me, but I asked them to put it together, was to check a box that said if you're in a deficit, doesn't fall back to the district.
Oh, okay,
So
I misunderstood
think
that.
took place.
Okay.
But the way that it works is they would then cut quality and services in order so that they can continue their running a business.
So that, in other words, if we don't want the quality cut, then we have to increase the prices to the families.
You have to amend the agreement. Right.
The contract basically says that we as a board set the rates for food services on an annual basis. And that's our obligation to set those rates based on the recommendation that their services should be.
When do the rates reset? If it's set on an annual basis, aren't they set over the summer for the start of the fall year?
That's how typically it's done, but since we haven't been charging meals, it was not done last year, this year, was it not done the previous year, so these rates have stayed the same since 2017 and 18 during that time. Cost of product has gone up.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, I think we need an answer to what the question we asked. Is there also a rule that we have to pay for kids? The school wants to have that seat for their child.
No,
No.
no,
I mean, not every parent and not every child purchases lunch, so.
Right.
So they do like statistical analysis of how many people buy food.
Yeah, which is how they estimated on December 23rd is when we would anticipate.
Run out.
So we can say, okay, statistics, what is this?
But that,
We can renegotiate tonight, but we have a difference, because nobody here wants food.
that's what I'm saying is that our contract is not designed and school districts don't do that. We don't make up the difference in what a company loses in profit. It's not that you would have a self-funded system. We wouldn't be outsourcing the contract. It's designed for them to run a business model and to run the operation. We're contracting with them to do that work. So you as a board, I would never recommend that you would say on record, we're going to absorb the deficit, because they could come back and say 1 year, here's your deficit, $250,000.
exactly, exactly. So it sounds like we'll table this until we get further information.
But we have to let them know 30 days.
But it doesn't sound like we're gonna get further information.
Yeah, no.
Oh, no.
The question I asked is apparently not something that we're gonna get the answer for. I'm sure it can be quantified with a basis, but if it's not something the board is going to be paying for, and the question is whether parents absorb this hit come January or not.
Right.
The cost for the supplies is going up regardless. If the parents don't pay that increase, then something will suffer for it. And it's gonna be quantity, quality, like there's a minimum number of calories, but it doesn't have to be the most edible calories.
It's delicious.
And no one wants to see that happen.
So why can't we just keep it the way it is and do more advertising if there's families in need or struggling? And here's how you,
Well,
Yeah, assistance.
keeping the way it is would not be increasing.
I mean, increase,
Oh,
because we don't want to
increase,
lose
yeah.
quality. We don't want to open up the agreement. We don't want to make a precedent.
Right,
Let's just go with the increase and then put more communication out. Times are tough. You're
Yeah.
struggling. We have a program. Please apply.
Yes.
Just keep it that way.
I like that
It's
idea.
3 months and it's reduced months. Found it qualified private.
Maybe when we send the memo out saying that we're gonna start to have to charge, we attach that free and reduced.
That was.
Any
any further? Do we have to do a motion to,
I believe
Yes,
so.
we want to do motions. Yeah.
motion to increase school lunches?
Do you want to get specific to what it is, or,
I think it would be specific to most either, but 50 cents increase.
well, you can just say elementary school,
I don't think you need to have
they're all
actual
50
dollar amounts,
cents.
you could say they're
Okay,
50 cents.
it's all 50 cent.
50 cents. Motion to increase school lunches by 50%, 50 cents.
Second.
Any
Sure.
further discussion? I got you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Discussion and action in regard to the OMS spring musical.
Okay, so the way that the spring musical at the middle school functioned, the way that the spring musical and the fall play function at high school, when I first got here, was very, very informal. There was nothing in a single MOU outside of the director itself, and a couple pieces from the high school that was covered by anything. The high school and the middle school basically without going to do our business office, without going to anything that was as it's supposed to happen.
Wild, wild west.
Right, we're just basically saying that we're gonna hire you for that, that's the senior position, which we can't do. And then we're just drawing funds and say, okay, this year we're gonna take X, this year for that, and Y for that. And we're just gonna go ahead and pay you from the revenue that we have sitting here. And in some cases, people were just given a check on the spot at the end of the evening. So nothing was done as was supposed to, and it was part of the work that I did, sent out to the audit was planning all of that. I then went to the schools, this is how you need to shore it up. It really was not fixed too much through the pandemic because you really were not trying to show this during the
Right.
pandemic. So stuff kind of sat dormant for that. Last year, I said to the middle school, brand new principal, said to high school, brand new principal, this is what you need to do. The middle school followed a lot more direction than the high school did. We had to go back and fix a lot of the high school stuff. Afterwards, we created some stipends for the high school. We got it signed. We paid in the way that it needs to be done. A lot of that took place post-budget process itself, so we didn't realize a lot of that money was being drawn from the revenue of the actual plays and musical to pay for the position itself. So the budget itself was really as it was. So this year, we're operating still on a budget that didn't have any of those positions really into the budget itself. We developed a new stipend agreement with you this past year. For the audience that are aware of how the stipends came about, I gave a list of the stipends as they were to each administrator and to the Teachers Association. I said, here's the stipend positions, here is the title of it, here is the amount that we had before. Do you want, there's comments that fund it? Yes, no. If not, what are you going to do with it? Provide a job description for the stipend, provide who the person to be accountable to. So the reality was a formal, tell me how you're going to be using this. The recommendations that came back to me included, in some cases, changes to stipend amounts at all levels. Some stipends came out, some stipends came in. I didn't personally go to anybody and say, I want to cut this or cut that or make a change. The recommendations all came from both parties. How they ended up where they were, I can't tell you exactly that. I can tell you there were changes that were made with the same exact process to more detail this year, but the same process that I undertook was actually the year before. The same process that we undertook before I was here. When I was on board, the negotiation for the stipend that year was mid-process. It's always been here where there's a negotiation between the Teachers Association and administration for what those stipends were. So where we are right now is that the current school year at the high school level, we did create additional stipends to support the fall play, the spring musical. When I say additional positions beyond just the director, but musical coordinator, set design, there's additional pieces of people that really help to make the fall play and spring musical thrive and happen. It can't just all be one person. The middle school stipend for this year, the only position that was called for through that negotiation was the actual director for the spring musical, not the other stage or music or anything else that would go along with that. So where we are right now is that we have one stipend for the spring musical. It is to be funded, it's written into the MOU that we was not in budget, that it was going to be funded through the revenue. And just like the other components in the high school, it would be funded through the revenue that was in the past years. I've had conversations with the budget committee, the finance committee, and I think we as a team think that we are to be funded the same way we fund athletics. It should be part of the overall budget. I don't know if we can do that this year. We have revenue in past expenses to pay the positions that we need this year. But moving into next year's budget cycle, I'd like to see it put into the actual operating budget to support the arts the way that athletics is done. What I'm asking for tonight is authority for Stephanie to develop an MOU with the Teachers Association to sign an MOU to create a stipend for the producer, set costume choreographer, and local technical director to serve as the additional people that a director needs to make the spring musical happen at the middle school. That would make it on par with the high school spring musical. Now, the high school spring musical, it's a longer production, it's more complex. So the stipends, just like all the other stipends, when you look at comparing A versus B, the high school stipends are more than the middle school, just the nature of the complexity of the work. So I'd be asking for Stephanie to help draw an MOU or to create an MOU for these positions. The actual amount would be slightly less than the high school counterparts would be, and so that would be consistent with all the other stipends that we have for all of the positions. And we'd also be looking to address the stipend reduction to the actual director at some point that's kind of in the middle there to help compensate that person for the work that they're doing. So that's the motion of the table for this evening.
So the stipends would be the same as coaches and everything else, where they would have to be applied for, and then the principals make the decision on who gets the stipend.
They make a recommendation to me. And
Oh, to you, okay. And it still is, I believe it goes to teachers have first
That's
crack at it, and then if there are no teachers, then it can go to other support
So
staff or
anybody-
anybody else.
In the case of the fall play, we actually didn't even have a staff member that directed the fall play this year.
Oh.
That's that person, but went first to people within the district.
Right, okay. Do you want to make the motion?
Motion to allow the BOE chair to develop and sign MOU to adjust the OMS music director and to create stipend position for the following stipends for the Oxford Middle School Spring Musical producer, set costumes, choreographer, vocal and technical director.
Second.
Next second, are there any further questions or discussion?
I have discussion that I'd like to address. So I'm very much for the program, the drama program. I think it's very valuable to the district and to the students. What I would highly recommend is that the way we go about communicating a problem should not be from individuals on staff to families to then have the families. You shouldn't have to be put in the middle. You can champion your children, and I applaud you for it, and I thank you for coming. But we shouldn't rely on parents to fight for things that are reasonable, justified, and should go through reasonable, proper chain of command. If, let's say, staff members are looking at a stipend and don't agree, well, honestly, ideally, it would be handled before it's brought to the administration for approval. After the fact, it's very difficult because, as anyone has seen our finance budget process, once our operations funds are set, it's hard to find undiscovered money. We really don't budget for things. We budget for some slack, but not typically for stipend slack. And so we look at that and we go, there's a proper chain of command. It should be followed. And when it's not, it should be addressed. So I hope that those in the chain of command have some dialogue to avoid this from happening again. And we don't waste a lot of time, because they're boots on the ground. They should be able to identify the problem faster, address it, We could still talk about it at the Board of Ed level. We could talk about it at the Finance Subcommittee. We should be operationally funding these positions and not making them have to fight for every penny that they need. We handle it for athletics, and I support athletics, but we should also be handling this in the operational budget for, our arts program as well.
Right, and I think that what we're at right now is from years of a bad model that we're now course correcting, and I think that course correction just got interrupted with the pandemic because stuff got stalled for so long. But I think that we're moving in the right direction.
But I do think that Mike is making a point about when you talk about, different directions between social media and between, that, I mean, it just really needs to be, we're not the big bad wolf here. So, it needs to.
And I had a conversation with the principal this morning, I met with her, talking about where some of the photo communication coming from and address that. And your point is right on. There's proper channels to address concerns.
And I'm sorry, you can, after,
Sure.
when the meeting's over. I know, but I'm sorry, but you can't though. I'm sorry.
So
I didn't want to ignore you.
the other thing is that the union's actively involved in negotiating the stipend. So it's, and I found our notes from that meeting, and that stipend was reduced to fund the investors club. $1,000 was taken to fund the investors club. So that was done by the union. That was not done by the Board of Education.
Well, what
In
wasn't,
fact, the board, point of record, what the board did was to authorize the signing of the MOU. We didn't actually negotiate.
No,
Of course.
not at all.
What is the second?
Those came to us that way.
well, the whole process of the investors club was inappropriate, so.
That was the other one.
Oh,
That was the
that
old
was a
one.
different-
That we fixed.
Thank you.
We fixed
That was
that
fixed.
one.
That was fixed.
We actually have a stipend for it now, rather than running through groups.
Yeah. Yep, motion, and we have a second.
I seconded.
And any further discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Thank you. Robert, your report.
So here's some updates. First of all, I'm going to address athletics. I'm going to address student drama, and I'll start with the drama. The student high school play was Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I had a chance to go both Thursday and Saturday. And I was driving back from Groton on Friday evening. Our students did a wonderful job. The performances, what I loved about it, it was a play that was selected that it wasn't just one or two leading stars, but it was made up of a small little tiny acts, and each act had basically two students that were starring in that act, and every student had an opportunity to really shine and be a star. And it was just great to see all around the performances. It's funny, the students had great acting, the stage itself, they did a great job in setting it up. So it was just all around. It's wonderful to see our students performing at such a high level. I would love to see a greater audience at the play and the musicals that our students are performing. We got Friday and Saturday night work for people to get there, but the students did a great job. And,
How about the student attendance? Were there a lot of?
there were some. I think we got some graduates that had to come back to watch it, but I'd love to see more students actually come out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, on Thursday night, it was when it was the meet the parents,
Oh,
parent
yeah,
teacher
that's
for middle
That was
school.
not
so
good.
That was the
That was
conflict.
not good.
Scheduling was
planning.
hard.
Yeah, scheduling.
Yeah.
But I also heard that the director, or one of the leading people was a former graduate
The director was a graduate, and she
from
actually,
Oxford High.
yes, yeah, she graduated, and I've talked to her about how she wants to participate in this musical since we're having difficulty getting.
Now, let me just ask you, just in general, this is just an observation that I've had as far as student body support. Do you see it, at the football games, and then do you, see, I mean, obviously our soccer team was phenomenal. Should there be something, maybe, I don't know, pep rallies or something to get the student, because you really want your student body, and yes, it'd be nice if, everyone from Oxford Greens came, but, they really want the support of the teachers and even the teachers' families. So, I mean, that should be just a given of the people who are definitely gonna be there, and then the other people who go are just added on, so.
I think we can do more things to motivate and encourage students to be there. Either, I hate doing extra credit, but you could do something like that. You could do language arts where students are asked to do a critique, write an article. You can do stuff, but I do
I'm
want to
saying
intrinsically
what-
motivate students to be there.
Right, I mean, motivation is that you're there to support your peers.
Right.
So that's where, everyone doesn't have to get paid to do, paid no matter what, to do things. So I think that maybe on the student council, student representatives, we obviously missed having students on the board, this year, but we'll definitely do that. There needs to be a groundswell of just, we're in this is your school. These are your peers. These are the people that you should be supporting. I mean, we used to have, people, school spirit. We used to have people at swim meets,
I saw
that
a
were.
lot more students attend the spring musical than I saw it in the drama performance this past week. So
Okay.
I'd like to figure out how we can get more students, and I've talked to some teachers about that, I would continue talking to administration about that, but it's something that I want to see.
But again, is anybody talking to the kids and saying, why, that's what I mean by student council talking to their peers and saying, look, let's all go support, Johnny and Susie and, that's what you do as a community. So, I mean, instead of taking it up here, I mean, you need to talk to the kids.
Yes, I think that's part of the actions.
Maybe they could do that. on advisory.
Advisory, there's a lot of different avenues, it seems.
Yes.
Were you gonna say something, John?
I agree with Vic. It comes down to school spirit, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I know they do the color wars, there's a whole bunch of stuff, but it's more than just buying spirit gear too, I mean,
Correct.
there should be certain days that are flagged that, okay, well, there's a game this week, maybe it's, wear your spirit gear today, one of those things. I mean, when I say that, it just doesn't come from the students. I mean, teachers should be 110% supportive. I mean, I've been going to most of the football games this year. You've seen your usual faces, but I like to see strange faces there too, and you don't see that.
Yeah.
And that's a culture issue.
Right. Correct.
I know when I was in school. There were certain schools you wanted to be. And there's other ways to say that, but just certain other schools.
Rival schools.
Yeah.
Because that was
The rival. Yep.
You could do the fact that you have to on private.
Right.
But that to me, what was.
You're not supposed to name them, but that's. Stratford is gonna come out.
That's in there.
I agree. And support. I mean, it's just support.
That's what changed what we did.
It's like pain. No, I know.
And when I see that, and I'm not involved with this whole thing.
Yeah. But we're trying to change that. So we are having.
Well, just for the record, not the bonfire, but the kids never showed up. So it ended because, so many people went through to plan such a big event. They had it for 2 years. The first year it was okay. The second year there was not enough kids, so it got canceled. But after everything got purchased.
And
We tried.
Hey, could I just-
while I want to see an improvement in student participation, it's not just, we're talking about the drama program right now.
Yeah.
When you go to the athletic games,
all we did.
that we
was
need to address,
Hockey,
right?
football, swimming, everybody has their social life. But I think kids now, their social life is their tablets.
It's this,
Yeah.
it's different.
Put the phones out.
So it is something that we need to address.
Yeah, yeah.
Into going back to athletics, we had a girls swim and dive that came in second place. Volleyball team made it to the playoffs, and our boys soccer team lost a double overtime. The team actually ended up winning the tournament over the weekend. So they got really close, and I'm really proud of all of our teacher. Tomorrow, I teach in Grace Roberts from middle school. From her work with Oasis to get a substance abuse program for the middle school students that was so sorely needed on the spot. And she's done tremendous work over time with student council and government to get students actively involved there. So I surprised her this morning in the classroom, and she was really surprised. So surprised she dropped the certificate in front of me. But she was shocked. She sent me a thank you afterwards. And my staff member of the month is Marilyn Goncho, who took a new role for us this year as our leading purchaser. She did a smile on her face. She's professional. She's communicates very effectively, and she's done it at a very high level. So I wanted to award her for her positive attitude and something with heart and soul and getting to work on that. So
She's great. Her kids kind of.
I know.
Congratulations to both.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well
I
deserved.
awarded her both of them. Our budget process is underway. We've asked the administrators to work with their teachers, department chairs, content teachers, secretaries, the works. I said to admins, I said to the district leadership council, I don't want to hear from teachers and staff in December and January that they were not spoken to. Everybody in the district should be asked, what are your needs for next year? This is your opportunity to go back and build that. The goal is to have the budget spreadsheet back from the admins on December 6th. We have scheduled meetings now with each administrator for the cost center the next few days after that. And then myself will start putting the budget together. We'll see where we are from an overall perspective, where we need to trim at that point. And then the goals will be going into early January, having an internal number to begin putting the budget together, and then working with the board finance committee. And then what I'd like to do is to do what we did last year, which is between the first meeting in January and the second meeting in January, to do a budget workshop. We had a special meeting that really just addressed the budget, invite the board of finance, and again, like we did last year, and allow each cost center to come in and talk about the high level parts of the budget and answer your questions. And that would lead into the budget presentation, which really is more of just a budget unveiling the end of January. So that's where our budget perspective. I'm excited. Mike, the new team members officer started yesterday.
Oh, good.
We started the day with a cabinet meeting, really team stuff and talking about the work and talking about the first level needs to be engaged and kind of bonding with the leadership team. Then took them out to all 4 schools, gave them a tour, introduced them to administrators, secretaries, teachers who could find kind of custodians that were there. So it got off to a good start and came back in day 2. So
That's always good.
But he's excited. For now, I moved him into Anthony's old desk, and Mark has moved into where George's office has been. So that Mike and I are going to be working very closely together. So that the chief operations officer would be important to be in that same suite there. So that's what we've done so far.
And he will be, he'll be taking over the weekly communication that.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
that's, my next thing.
And it might be nice for him to just pop in at one of the board meetings, because I think a lot of board members haven't met him.
Yeah,
So if there's a
absolutely.
chance where he could stop in,
We could
just-
schedule that for the next meeting.
just sort of be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
that'd be
so you
good.
know.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so, we're not gonna do a newsletter this week because of Thanksgiving, but we're gonna start next Saturday. So the December 3rd. What's gonna happen is I've asked each administrator to rotate, so every 10th week, an admin's gonna have an admin corner in the newsletter. So basically, the rest of the school year, each admin's gonna be asked to write the articles. It's not an overwhelming piece. And it's gonna rotate, so I put Anthony at the last of the 10, so he's not gonna do
So
one.
he has a
so
break,
that was- I
yeah.
give him a break there.
Yeah.
And also gives the committee an opportunity to hear from each administrator from their perspective, their lens, and have their own unique spin on it. I've asked them to submit their article to me the Wednesday of each week to give me time to review before it goes to newsletter. I've given them a Google Drive folder for them to put their school newsletters and stuff, putting more of a structure behind it. Because what I don't want to have is Mike have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 in the morning.
Right.
Together.
Right.
I want to develop packets together Friday.
Yeah.
And I moved the timeline back to Tuesdays and Wednesdays if there's no school on Friday, so
Okay.
that's built into the schedule there. So we'll see how that works. I think that with that structure there and the expectation the admins are going to take the rotation. I don't think we're asking that much of them over the course of the rest of the year to get the articles.
Right.
If you put that into next year, at least for the first 3 months of school, they'll do 4 articles. It's not
Right.
overwhelming. It's every 2 months and then doing one.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's tolerable. So that will go into effect starting next Saturday. I'm going to continue getting my staff newsletter out, and I'm going to put a little more structure in getting some feedback from my cabinet for my Friday updates that I sent you as well to get more information from them, get more direct information from the different departments as well. The HVAC grant we spoke about before, I'm just waiting for all the different minutes to come in. As I said, further in the evening, there is a town meeting on Monday evening. It's a public meeting designed to get people to vote. I'm not exactly sure the structure of it, to actually fund the $2.some million that town's going to need. That's the final step that I need. That's the final set of minutes outside of tonight's minutes for the grant application itself. I might not be able to attend the meeting, but I don't necessarily think I need to be here at this point for this.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Right. And then my last 2 updates, our schools over the last 2 weeks did Stuff Bus. And over the course of all 4 schools, they built a little bit bus and a food. So like 1 whole bus of bus, that's correct. That was equivalent to creating 125 Thanksgiving baskets and fresh food for families. So pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That our students contributed. It's not just about test scores, it's also about teaching students how to do it. Helping those that are in need. So it's not just one. My final is a thank you to you.
So report of the chair, I'll pick up from that. Number 1, thank you, Vic. Very nice of you to give us, and next year maybe you need to get boutonnieres for the guys though. I feel kind of bad that they didn't get anything, but that was very nice of you. Robert does all the cooking. And last year I hosted, so my family had to separate through this bucket that I created, and it said gratitude on it. And I got plans, and I cut all these little things out and things that hanging on the tree. Now I have old boys, yeah, whatever. So now I'm not hosting it. I think on purpose they all got together and decided. So going to mass, but I did believe I told them that I saved the gratitude tree bucket, so I will be bringing that bucket to my aunts to continue the tradition. And that's exactly what they did. They said LOL, but to show gratitude and just like Robert, work with all of you guys and, you know, and grateful for our community and the support that we do get. It really is a great place to raise your kids here, and a lot of board members have and are in the process of raising them. So that's my report. I'm gonna start that. Why am I looking here? Okay, so of course, facilities, I thought you were next. Just had a quick meeting.
Yep. We talked about the middle school and high school schedule. We were supposed to have in January an update of we talked about didn't talk about school improvement. I lost my. I'm looking at my papers.
Reading program.
We talked about the science instruction at Quaker Farms and GOES. We got the spoken sequence of the world language program at middle school. and high school. We'll have one network.
Beginning of December, it's only a couple weeks from now.
All right, thank you, Deb.
Last meeting, we had our first read for the flies in the house. If anybody has any questions, now's the time. Otherwise, I ask that we.
So why don't you make a motion, Deb, and then if there's any questions.
Motion to approve. Policy.
Second.
Any questions on that policy or comments?
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Full of exertion. Right? There you go. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we had a meeting, it's pretty much Tuesday between all the Board of Ed meetings. So our next one is set for December 20th. We weren't sure if we're gonna have it. I think we will, as we prep for, it might not be a full 2-hour meeting, but we still probably will wanna have something just because it's, you know, it's budget season.
And there's a very important topic that we did not discuss.
So it was a good meeting. We talked about spring musical as was addressed, lunch costs. So Rob, a lot of the stuff that we talked about gets ported over to our agenda. We went over tuition and all the different breakouts. Oil deliveries, we're getting that filled before the end of the month so we can save a little money before our rate changes. By the way, do we have any updates? At some point, it'd be nice to know what the town does with the negotiations. Maybe we'll chat about it in December.
I know that Mark met with Jim Leva this morning to talk about utility costs. I don't have the details from that meeting, but he did meet with him this morning.
Okay, that'll be an exciting topic. Or terrifying. It'll be an insightful topic. I just want to call out, and maybe I do it more often great job on the finance report, and it's attached to this agenda. And it gets better every week or every month that we get it. We give feedback, he takes it, he applies it, and it's always improving. So it's greatly appreciated. We had special education cost center topic, and we got a better understanding of how that budget flows and excess cost grants and our balance. You know, so far we're on the right side of that equation, but you know, audibles that happen throughout the school year, it's very possible that what we budgeted will not be enough. So we're going to watch that very carefully and communicate with the town as needed if we, you know, if things go south. That's one of the things in our budget process where we're like, we can give so much slack based on what we're approved, and we have to go to the well. We will have to. And talk about the bus contract, and it's still up in the air whether we're about to bid or not. We might not. We'll see how things have gone in other districts to see what's the best path to try to not have a large cost increase hit us. I think got pushed. Hopefully we will revisit that because I think it's very important to the schools, teachers, and education that we have the right number of subs. And there is something that the board can do to support that process. And the next budget cycle, we will want to do that. Athletic director position, the topic got pushed at the time. I think the next meeting is setting budget.
They're talking about starting their auction again. So that's PTO meeting. We did talk about
Anything from anyone else who's a liaison for anything? Joe, are you a liaison for anything? Okay. I don't hear anything else. Then motion to